Hello, everyone, and welcome to the How to Get Started with Multicloud Kubernetes webinar. This is the third session in our webinar series, How to Fast Track Multi-Cluster Kubernetes Deployments in Hybrid Cloud Environments. All lines will be muted throughout the session, but please use the Q&A button to ask questions at any time. We will be answering your questions throughout the event. To turn on English subtitles, please use the closed captioning button at the bottom of your screen. And a quick note, this session is being recorded and will be available for you to watch again following the event. Please welcome our speakers for today, Simon Coter, Director of Product Management, Oracle Linux and Virtualization, and Dave Cabelus, Oracle Senior Principal Product Manager. Simon, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone. I'm really excited to be here today with Dave and talk about what we are all of us working together about Kubernetes, about Oracle Cloud Native Environment, as well as verrazzano. And today, our real target is to share with you how to get started with multi-cloud Kubernetes. Let's say with a very, very easy model, right? First of all, let me introduce how the stack, how the solution is today built. So today at Oracle, we have a comprehensive, integrated, as well as hybrid cloud solution, right, available for Kubernetes. Everything is built starting from open source projects, and it's a curated and standard-based suite of open source software, right? And it's a solution that can run on premises as well as in the cloud of your choice. So it could be Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, AWS, as well as Azure. This kind of option, this kind of solution today gives you a simplified adoption management of cloud native for your container services. The architecture is built on three different main layers, right? So at the operating system level, we obviously have there Oracle Linux as the most secure and scalable operating system, right? On top of Oracle Linux, we have Oracle Cloud Native Environment. That is the simplified container infrastructure, lifecycle management, and runtime. So into Oracle Cloud Native Environment, over there we have unified management, so one central point of management for Kubernetes, as well as all the possible modules that run on top of Kubernetes. We have cluster lifecycle and API. We have the support for more than one container runtime, as well as different options related to storage integration, as well as networking management. On top of Oracle Cloud Native Environment, we have then verrazzano. I'm not going to deep dive into verrazzano just because Dave is here, and Dave is the real expert about verrazzano. But verrazzano is a multi-cluster, multi-cloud hybrid application management platform, right? So a solution able to support day one and day two automated management. So let's start with what Oracle Cloud Native Environment is. So first of all, Oracle Cloud Native Environment includes a CNCF certified Kubernetes. What does it mean? It means that the Kubernetes release that is part of Oracle Cloud Native Environment does not introduce any kind of lock-in. And so at the same time is also a certified Kubernetes release, certification coming from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Into Oracle Cloud Native Environment, we support single node Kubernetes clusters for that scenario, but at the same time, we also support multi-cluster. We also support big clusters, so where maybe you have different worker nodes and different control nodes. And into Oracle Cloud Native Environment, we also have the support for different modules. So over there, we have a service mesh, we have cloud native networking support, we have persistent storage support for your pods, your containers, your services running on top of Oracle Cloud Native Environment. We have high availability for your services, as well as for Kubernetes itself. And at the same time, also load balancing. So load balancing is there for the control nodes, for example, of your Kubernetes deployment, but at the same time, we also have load balancing solutions for your application, your pod that are going to run on top of Kubernetes. And obviously over there, we also have monitoring and observability options, part of Oracle Cloud Native Environment, so focused on the monitoring and the observability of Kubernetes. All of these obviously is a solution again that runs on top of Oracle Linux. We also support the Red Hat compatible kernel, so we do not only support the Unbreakable Enterprise kernel on top of Oracle Linux, but also the Red Hat compatible kernel. That at the end means that you can even decide to possibly run Oracle Cloud Native environment on top of, for example, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and get the support from Oracle. The other important thing is that, as you know, Oracle Linux is there for on-premises. We have different type of images. We also have images there on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And we also have images available on third-party cloud. So Oracle Linux images are also there, for example, on Azure or as well as AWS, right? So you can even decide to run Oracle Cloud Native environment on all of those, right? Yeah, and the other point is that even while running Oracle Cloud Native environment on premises, you can even decide to run on top of an hypervisor or on top of a virtualization solution, and there's no limitation there. So we have customers today running Oracle Cloud Native environment on top of Oracle Linux KVM, but at the same time, we also have customers running on the private cloud appliance, running Oracle Cloud Native environment on the private cloud appliance, and others running even Oracle Cloud Native environment as well as Oracle Linux on top of VM, right? So at the end, many different choices, and this is also why with Oracle Cloud Native environment as well as verrazzano, obviously, you can decide to possibly have a multi-cloud Kubernetes deployment or even a hybrid cloud Kubernetes deployment. Yeah, before getting on the installation process and the fact that at the end I'm going to anticipate something, the fact that at the end you can get your Kubernetes cluster up and running, deployed, fully deployed by executing one single command. I would like to give and to stay for a moment here on the quick start option that we lately introduced in our Oracle Cloud Native environment. So quick start is part of an option that we introduced on the command line interface we have there for Oracle Cloud Native environment, and allows you to provision a complete deployment, including platform components and modules. So this kind of option is able to define all the prerequisites that are there for your Kubernetes deployment, satisfy all of those prerequisites, create certificates for all of your Kubernetes nodes, could be worker nodes as well as control nodes, apply kernel parameters on all of those machines, apply firewall configuration, C Linux configuration, as well as YAM configuration to get access to OCNE packages, and proceed to install all the packages and configure your Kubernetes cluster. It's not just Kubernetes. You can even decide to automate the possible deployment of further modules on top of Kubernetes, always by one single command. So now let's get on the installation demo. So first of all, I would like to share with you the environment that we have worked on and we installed. And obviously today on this environment, we have both OCNE as well as verrazzano deployed. So first of all, we have three different clusters, right? One cluster is defined as administration cluster. And on this concept, I think that Dave is going to get later. And then we have two managed clusters, one deployed in the United States and the other one deployed in Germany. The interesting point here is that all of those clusters are centrally managed by one single point of management, right? So, and even the deployment happened in this way. So from one host, we deployed all the Kubernetes cluster. Now, what I'm going to do for this session, for this webinar, I'm going to get on the deployment that we've done in Germany, right? So I'm now going to connect there, or I'm already connected to the operator node, right? So the node where I started all the deployments of my clusters there. And yeah, from here, I prepared some scripts, okay? So I have prepared one script that is named check Kubernetes Germany, deploy Kubernetes Germany, and remove Kubernetes Germany. Because I tried obviously more than one time, because I also verified that I can automatically deploy my Kubernetes cluster, I can update my Kubernetes cluster, I can even decide to remove to then redeploy my Kubernetes cluster. But the good point is that the entire configuration, the entire deployment, and being executed by this command, olsnectl provision, -d is for debug, right? -y is just because they do not want any kind of prompt asking for confirmation. And then one single configuration file, the file containing the entire configuration for my Kubernetes cluster. So the real interesting point here is related to the configuration of my Kubernetes cluster. And so the configuration file that I have here. So let's see what we have into this configuration file. So environment name, obviously that one is just your choice, but here the important point is the operator node, so ITOP. Modules, obviously I'm going to deploy Kubernetes. My Kubernetes cluster is going to be called OCNE with ZDE. This one is the container registry, so where the images are coming from. I have a load balancer. I have 3 different control nodes, right? As well as 3 different worker nodes. And obviously those are there for high availability. So this is the minimum expected for an high available Kubernetes cluster. I'm going to deploy Helm on top of Kubernetes, as well as OCI CCM, so the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Cloud Control Manager. And related to OCI CCM, I would like to take a pause. As you can see here, I'm also giving many different information about my tenant, my compartment, my user. So in this case, Kubernetes is even going to authenticate to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And maybe the question could be, okay, why? Just because by this module, Kubernetes, as well as everything that we run on top of Kubernetes, so for example, verrazzano, will have the opportunity to work on both the networking and the storage options that we have there on OCI, right? So by leveraging this module, for example, you will have the opportunity to automate the creation of a load balancer there on Oracle Cloud, or you will have the option to automate the creation of a persistent storage volume for your pods running on top of Kubernetes. So this is a module obviously dedicated to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Within OCNE, we also have many different other modules dedicated to the networking as well as the persistent storage. Yeah, that said, going ahead, if you want to get on the installation, yeah, will be just a single command. So as you can see from this one, I'm just going to execute deploy Kubernetes Germany, and that one is just containing the olsnectl provision, nothing more than that. So everything is there again in the YAML configuration file that I just showed you before. Yeah, and now the installation started, and as you can see while looking at the logs, yeah, first of all, the automation is going to create the certificates, going to deploy all of those certificates to the different Kubernetes nodes, configure the firewall, configure the operating system, install the packages, open the ports on the firewall, to then complete the configuration as well as the installation of Kubernetes. As you can see, CRYO service is starting, kubeless service is starting. So everything is going to be automatically executed by olsnectl, so by Oracle Cloud Native Environment. And the final result will be that you will get a cluster completely installed, right? Obviously, while the installation is running, you always have the opportunity to look at logs. So by looking, for example, at var log messages, you can see what the operator node is executing on your control node as well as worker node, right? And while running, you can always check the status by executing another olsnectl command, right, to check the status of your Kubernetes cluster. So let's see, in this example, we have the 3 control nodes installed, we have the 3 worker nodes installed, and Helm and OCI CCM modules have been created. And if I go ahead, obviously, you will see that those modules are also going to be deployed, right? And in 14 minutes, right? So 14 minutes, by executing one single command, I got my Kubernetes cluster up and running and completed, as well as different modules installed on top of Kubernetes. And going ahead, you will see that, again, by executing the OSNE CTL check, I have the opportunity to check that all of those modules have been deployed. So worker nodes are there, control nodes are there, Kubernetes cluster has been deployed and installed, OCI, CCM, and Helm modules had been installed.
It's pretty amazing. You know, like I just remember the pages and pages of documentation that I had to go through trying to get OCNE up and running. And now with this command, it's like, it's incredible. Really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Yeah, you know, I know that it's something common even for verrazzano team to really listen to our customers and try to address, let's say, their requests and their requirements. And I have to say that I'm let's say, the lucky person talking about this and talking about what we have done. But we had many people working on this, and today the installation and deployment of Kubernetes is really easy. Yeah, and it's great. I agree with you. I love this. Right. So to share with you the architecture we worked on and we just deployed. At the end, we had one OCNE operator node, so one unique operator node, one unique machine, able to control the local Kubernetes cluster that is there on the same Oracle Cloud region. Then the same operator node that being used to deploy and manage the Kubernetes cluster that we have there in Germany, as well as the Kubernetes cluster that is there in the US. So one single management interface for your multi-cloud Kubernetes cluster deployment. And with that said, I'm now going to hand over to Dave, that is going to share with us, very interesting topics about verrazzano.
Thank you, Simon. All right, so let's pick up from where you left off here. So let's talk about verrazzano. So what is it? First of all, it is an enterprise container platform. You know, what do I mean by that? Well, it's all the stuff that you need to sit on top of Kubernetes and really on top of multiple Kubernetes clusters, right? So we just saw Simon set up 3 Kubernetes clusters, and now we're going to spread verrazzano across that, right? And so it is the things that you need to run and manage your clusters plus the applications that sit on top of it. So we take a series of open source components. These are very commonly used components like OpenSearch and Prometheus and Grafana and Istio, and we put them all together. We make sure they work really well together, and then we also we build the operators and custom resources and admission controllers that make it really work as a platform. So you install this. When you install it, we set up everything that's here, right? We set up the Istio service mesh, we set up the observability stack, we set up Rancher for cluster management and cluster observability. And then it's a platform that's meant to run things like your traditional applications, as well as Java microservices and non-Java microservices. So it's a platform with, very easy to set up, very easy to maintain, and gives you what you need to really keep your applications up and running. And so not only does it sort of flatten the learning curve, make things easy at installation time, it also makes things easy at application deployment time. So when you go to deploy applications in verrazzano, you need to provide a couple of different YAML files. One is a component definition, basically saying, here's my microservice, here's where I get the container image, here's maybe a port where I can access it. Very simple YAML file. And then the other is an application configuration that says, okay, here are the series of microservices I want to deploy, and here's how I want to expose them and capture metrics as I deploy into this environment. And when you do that, it's 2 kubectl apply commands, and verrazzano does a lot of automation, a lot of heavy lifting, right? It takes away the learning curve here, right? So verrazzano gets a token, creates a service account from that token, creates an authorization policy for that service account, creates a Kubernetes deployment, creates a Kubernetes service, creates an Istio gateway and a virtual service to make that application available pretty much as you tell us to, right? If you say expose these 3 microservices, but not these others, we only set up the virtual service for the application components that you tell us to. Verrazzano gets a certificate, puts that certificate into a secret, creates a network policy based on that certificate, and then updates the Prometheus configuration to start capturing metrics from your application. And then we also have FluentD deployed as a daemon set within the cluster, and that will automatically capture logs and trace records and push them into OpenSearch. So all of this automation with just 2 very simple kube control commands. And then from a multi-cloud perspective, so we built the multi-cloud capabilities in Verrazzano to really mimic the kube-fed implementation. This is not a kube-fed implementation, but it mimics that. It's designed after that. And when you do that, you basically interact with the admin cluster in your environment. You say, okay, admin cluster here, I want you to deploy this application for me. And the admin cluster says, okay, great. We'll create these custom resources in memory. And then you tell me which cluster you want it to deploy to, and then I'll actually defer to those remote clusters, let those clusters do all that automation that I just described. And then we start capturing the metrics and log records and trace records and bring them back to the admin cluster. And so we're going to actually take where Simon left off here, right? So we've got these clusters set up, and then we're going to use the Verrazzano command line interface, CLI, to do a really easy install in the admin cluster. And then we're going to use it to install Verrazzano in these 2 managed clusters as well. And so again, we're kind of picking up on the same theme that we saw with OCNE, right? Like really easy to roll this stuff out. Simple, it's going to be a command with, what do you call it? With just a configuration file. And then after we get it up and running, we're actually going to do a deployment, which is kubectl apply. We're going to interact with that admin cluster. The admin cluster is going to defer to the cluster in Germany, and then we're going to start capturing that observability information and bring it back to the admin cluster. So we're going to show all this. So let me switch over to the recording of my my demo here. And so we recorded this really to make it easy so we could time lapse things. So let's show you here. So I'm going to show you the command line interface. So it's pretty simple, VZ, and you can see I've got version 1.4.2 installed. There are a bunch of different commands or things that you can do with this command line. You can analyze your cluster. So we've got a knowledge base of known issues. You can install, you can uninstall, you can upgrade, lots of things. So we're going to use this CLI to install today. I typically use this very simple one, the first one here, which is VZ install. And that one's just bare bones, but it gives you the production profile, streams the logs to the console as you do it. But for today's demo, because we're doing something a little bit more elaborate, we're actually going to use this command where we pass in a configuration file. And that configuration file is just basically, again, to tell us, where are the load balancers that I need when I go to set up my cluster. So you see here, I've got this custom resource file, this myvz custom resource. So let's take a look, and I'll show you what's inside there. And you can see it's pretty simple. We're going to use the production profile. So this is a documented profile in the Verrazzano documentation. And we just need to say, okay, where are the load balancers? And so we do that. And then as we go to install, we just say Verrazzano install, and let me pass in this, this configuration file, this myvz custom resource file. And then I'm going to time lapse this a little bit. Again, it takes about 15 minutes to install Verrazzano. And so we're pushing through, and you see what we're doing here is we're getting the container images for all of those components that we saw a couple of slides ago. And then we set them up. So we're setting up that observability stack. We're setting up Keycloak. We're setting up all the operators. We're setting up Istio. So everything, here it is 15 minutes later, roughly. and we've got Verrazzano up and running. So I can go here and say, okay, what's the status? And I've got my Verrazzano admin, and this is up and running. So of course, behind the scenes, we've already done this in the rest of those clusters that Simon was showing us. So let's take a look at the Verrazzano console. And so in this case, we've actually extended the Rancher console. And you'll see we've got these 3 clusters set up within Rancher. So I can actually drill down on each of these clusters. I can kind of see what's running in each of them, and so forth. And then let's take a look. The example we're going to deploy here, remember I said we're going to deploy an application. These are all documented examples. We're going to go to the multi-cluster examples. We're going to deploy this first one, this multi-cluster Hello World Helidon. So Helidon is a series of Java libraries that makes it easy to write Java microservices. So we're just going to show this example, and I do have 2 YAML files to deploy this, right? So there's the component file and there's the application configuration file. And these files are available on GitHub, right? So if you go to Verrazzano in GitHub, and you go to examples, you'll see we've got multi-cluster examples here. Again, we're kind of doing this, we're doing something a little bit more elaborate than just the bare bones here, but it is a very simple application. And so we've got these 2 files. And the second one has an extra stanza in it that basically says not only how do you want to expose this application, but it says, hey, where do you want me to place this? So I'm actually going to use a version of this file that has the placement for that German, the cluster in Germany that we talked about. So you'll see I've got these 3 files. I'm going to apply them, and the second one has that placement in it. So pretty simple here. Kubectl apply. Here's my component file, and then under now Verrazzano is actually creating that custom resource in memory. Basically saying, okay, here's this thing, I know what it is. And then we apply the other, the application configuration. Now we've said, okay, hey, I've got an application configuration, and this one has to go into my other cluster. So let's go take a look and see what's happening. So if I look at my multi-cluster applications in my environment, you can see I've got this application deployed, Hello Helidon. And it's deployed, if you look and see here, it's deployed in that remote cluster. It's not in the local cluster, it's in that managed one. And if we drill down, you'll see, okay, here's, we can see the pods running, and it's in that remote cluster. So this is up and running. Again, 2 quick kube control commands, and it's running. And now let's show you the other part here, right? So if we go to the open source dashboard, you'll see we're now starting to capture logs for this application. So let's open this up, and you can see, we've got these new application logs, right, for that Hello Helidon container. So we've just started capturing those. And then if we go to the Grafana console, you'll see, and we ship with a number of dashboards. I'm just going to show you the Helidon monitoring dashboard. And this one, as you can imagine, I've run this demo a few times to make sure everything's working right. So let's go to the latest version, which is what I just deployed. See, it's been up and running for about 2 minutes. We're capturing metrics, again, out of the box, ready to go, simple stuff. VZ install to install, kube control apply component, kube control apply application configuration, and things are up and running. So let me switch back to slides. That's the crux of the demo, and this is to kind of recap what we did here. We started with a series of virtual machines. Simon set up 3 Kubernetes clusters using that OCNE operator node and the OCNE CTL provision command. Then we did the same with Verrazzano, right? We did a Verrazzano install, and then we did 2 standard kube control apply commands, and we've got this system up and running. So it is.
And yeah, Dave, you know what? It's really great. It's really great, and the fact that you have a centralized feedback or a centralized monitoring or observability, that one is really great. Also, because correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, while starting on leveraging Kubernetes solution as well as Verrazzano, yeah, you can easily see those environments growing up in terms of nodes, in terms of clusters, and having or keeping one centralized observability and management solution is a must, right? You cannot skip that.
Definitely. Good stuff. So to kind of come back where we started, what is that solution that we talked about? That includes things like the Oracle Linux operating system. It includes Oracle Cloud Native Environment for Kubernetes and managing Kubernetes, and then Verrazzano that sits on top to manage the whole situation across clusters. This is a really cool solution. If you'd like to learn more, there are a bunch of links here to go check it out. We've got a number of videos out there. You can get access to the source code for all of these components. I think that's where we are.
Dave, in the meanwhile, I think that we have many different questions there, but maybe the first one where maybe I can also answer is asking what is the best way that I can try out OCNE and Verrazzano. We think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but for both OCNE and Verrazzano today we have Luna Labs, right? So if you go there on the luna.oracle.com website and you look for OCNE or for Verrazzano, you can find labs that you can execute on your own and for free on environments that are there on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So you have a lab, you have instructions, and you can really start to play with OCNE and Verrazzano. Another important question, and maybe Dave, you can help on this. Mm-hmm. What does support look like for these products, right?
Oh, it's really cool. So support for all of these components is really provided by Oracle. So Oracle works with the various communities that provide the base pieces that we've talked about. Oracle then, if there's an issue, we work with the community to get the issue fixed. In rare cases, we actually have to create our own fix and then push it into the community for adoption also. So the idea is like this: we want to keep things unforked. We make it so that we're providing upstream versions of these components, and then we work with those various communities to make sure that fixes are adopted and so forth. Excellent. Looks like there's one more for me here, right? And it says, so besides a Kubernetes cluster, what does Verrazzano need before installing it? What are the prerequisites? And so basically Verrazzano needs, we need a load balancer to create ingresses for system components and for deployed applications. We also need a CSI implementation that can be used to create persistent storage. So we saw Simon talk about this at the beginning, right? So we had with that OCI CCM, that cloud control manager gives us the ability to create storage. It's also good if you've got a network interface implementation that can provide network policy controller implementation. So Verrazzano sets up those network policies for you, and if you have a CNI that provides network policy controller implementation, those policies will come in pretty handy. Let's see. Oh, here's one for you, Simon. Which platforms or clouds does OCNE support?
Obviously, we talked about multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. Theoretically, today, the important thing is to have Oracle Linux. And if you look at Oracle Linux, Oracle Linux is there, obviously, on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, is there on Oracle Engineered Systems, like the private cloud appliance, is obviously a supported guest operating system for Oracle Linux KVM. And while talking, and this is related to the on-prem deployment or the options for on-prem deployment, while talking about the cloud, obviously we have Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, but the important thing to know is that we also have Oracle Linux images there for AWS as well as Azure. And so our customers can also decide to run Oracle Cloud Native Environment, and I can easily also add Verrazzano on Azure as well as on AWS. And maybe last but not least, if one customer decide or would like to run Oracle Cloud Native environment on top of VMware, for example, or a third-party advisor, we support also that, right? So theoretically, there's no real limitation on where to run Oracle Cloud Native environment as well as verrazzano, and we support these, and we support these in the cloud as well as on premises.
Awesome.
Yeah, let me also add that, David, it has been a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to get on this webinar with you and talk about what we have done in the latest months together, or even if in more than 1 year now together. It's really great. I think that we can also improve in the time, but what today we have is there, and it's already a great solution.
Thanks, Simon. I got it. It's been my pleasure. I mean, I'm super proud of where we are with all this, and I'm pretty excited to see where we're going with all this stuff too.
Yeah,
Thanks,
me too.
All right, so let's switch over to the host.
Thank you for attending our webcast today, and thank you to Dave and Simon for the insightful discussion on how to get started with multi-cloud Kubernetes. Follow us on social media to get the latest information and to hear about upcoming events for Oracle, Linux, and verrazzano. If you missed the first 2 sessions, Hybrid Cloud Native Challenges and Avoiding Bad Technology Choices and Vendor Lock-in, you can watch both on demand or register for the full webinar series by scanning the QR code or visiting oracle.com/openhybridcloudnative. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.